Hey y'all, and welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be looking at a game that I played today, which was just disastrous. A game where I blundered like 3 different times. I was winning, and in the end, well, you'll see. Yeah, let's get into the chess. My opponent starts off the game with d4, and I decide to play knight to f6. Very normal. I'm trying to play Nimzo Indian after c4, bishop e6, and bishop to b4, knight c3, like this. My opponent decides that he doesn't want to be into that, and he plays the move pawn to e3. Now I decide to switch it back up with pawn to d5, just saying, okay, well, we're just going to be playing a normal game now, and my opponent basically has to play in a certain way, otherwise he will be in a bit of a pickle. And what he's going to do, he's going to play something like g2, pawn to c4, or he's going to play knight to f3 and pawn to c4 like this. My opponent goes knight f3, I play the move bishop to f5, which is a move that I really enjoy, simply getting my bishop out of the pawn chain before playing e6. I really like playing like this. Of course, it's completely normal to not do this. You can play e6 first, but I feel like those positions are a little bit more complicated, and I don't really have that much of a good time with them. So this is what I choose. My opponent goes bishop to e2, e6, pawn to a3, and pawn to c5 on the board, because my opponent has not committed the move pawn to c4, which allows me to go strike at the center first and make my opponent play my game and be on the back foot already. Obviously, the point of pawn to c5 is that I'm putting pressure towards the center, and I'm going to go knight c6 after that, so as to not block my c-pawn with the knight. My opponent goes pawn to c3, very logical, building up the center like this in a pyramid structure. And you might say this looks like a lot like London, but my opponent's bishop is bad. It's gotten very strange on this side of the board, and my opponent's move pawn to a3 doesn't really do that much. So black is technically very slightly better here, although it's not really that much. Knight to c6, castles, and I think for a little bit, and I play the move bishop to e7, simply saying that I need to get my bishop out. And if you take on c5 now, it'll be fine. I'll just recapture my bishop. I'll spend a tempo, but my bishop is out, and I'm forcing him to do what I want to do. The engine thinks differently. The engine thinks that the move pawn to c4 is actually very strong here, which doesn't make it makes sense, but it's very complicated, and it's not something that I enjoy doing. I really don't like fixing the pawn structure with the move pawn to c4, because I feel like white can always play pawn to b3, but I suppose in this specific case he can't play pawn to b3 because pawn to b5 is immediate, and with the move pawn to a4, he's actually just destabilized himself on the b3 square. And if you take, I can take like this, go queen a4, go for something like this. I don't know, queen d7 seems natural, not to allow knight to e5. And yeah, I mean, I can tell now that white is probably a lot worse, but from a distance, it doesn't seem that easy. In any case, I play bishop e7, my opponent takes on c5, very logical. Bishop takes c5 and pawn to b4, which makes sense because this is kind of his whole point of playing pawn to a3 earlier on in the game. My bishop scoots back again to bishop to d6 with the third tempo I've made with this bishop, and my bishop is eyeing the king over here, and the position is relatively balanced, although I do think that white is a little bit worse because still they have the problem of this dark sword bishop here, and it's not like the most obvious way of getting out. You have to play something like bishop to b2 and c4, which my opponent promptly does. Bishop b2, castles, and c4. And okay, now it does seem like white has gotten rid of all of their issues, but there's still some problems and there's still some life in the position, and I'm going to be trying to exploit that and try to get a win on the board. I take on c4 because I don't think it's really good to let him take me. First of all, in some lines, if I play something like this, he's technically threatening this move. It doesn't really work right now, like this whole idea, because actually black is winning here. It's kind of funny because I have this idea of bishop takes h2, so you have to play something like, oh, my bad, the rook is hanging. That's a good point. Anyway, don't listen to me. I decided to take on c4 because I didn't want him to take on c4 at some point and give me an isolated queen spawn. That's why I did it. And although we have complete symmetricalism, I have no idea what the word is, complete symmetry in the position, I do think that black has a very, very slight edge. My dog is screaming in the background. If you can hear her, I'm very, very sorry. Alright, as I was saying, black just has... Black is kind of getting to the D file first. Black is kind of pressuring the king. I don't know. I feel like these bishops are a little misplaced. This one is very good, but this one, I could be in a better position. I feel like it'd be better fighting on this diagonal than the diagonal it is. And this bishop kind of points at the king, can go to the center. It's very, very slightly better for black. So I think for a little bit, I play the move queen to c7, which I think makes sense. The point is that, well, I'm getting off the D file. I want to go here, and yeah, if you allow me to go there, I'm going to just get to the D file first. I'm going to open up the position. I'm going to win the game, right? Also, I have an idea of bishop e5 at some point. My opponent goes queen b3. Very logical. He's putting the pressure down here. There might be some sacrifices on e6 at some point. And I decide that now is probably the right time to get mine into the center. We play knight to e5. And I want to trade some pieces. I'm just saying, okay, I want to trade these two for these two. And I calculated that after knight d4, well, I calculated that. And I'm just thinking that maybe I'm doing slightly better after the many trades. But actually, I should just be careful. I should just be a little bit cautious. I just play a move like rook a8. Sorry, not rook a8. Rook f8 is the best way to keep the advantage for black. And I didn't go for this because of rook c1, which I just thought didn't make any sense, because why am I on this diagonal with my queen? Like, now I have to move my queen or something. And this is wrong, but with the crazy move a5, I'm doing fine. After b5, knight e5, there isn't anything going on, because if this is ever played, then queen takes c1, and there's back rank ideas. Which, I guess, yeah. Anyway, that didn't happen. I play knight to e5 immediately. Bishop takes e5. Takes. This is the position. I'm attacking the rook. He has to defend it. He defends it with the move knight to d2. He's going to f3. He's going to d4. And in many cases, white could get the upper hand here. So I have to be careful. And I'm not really the most careful. I play very, very normal moves. I play rook fd8, which I just thought made sense, because what's more natural than putting a rook in the center? This is where the rook wants to go. Knight to f3, queen back to c7. And I'm just saying, okay, at this point, if you go here, I might play this move, rook c8. You go back, and then I take in some lines. Take, bishop f1. And I mean, I get two rooks. I have rook dd1 in some lines there. I don't know. You have serious back rank issues, and I'm going to try to exploit that. Rook ac1, rook ac8. Like I said, this is what happened during the game. And the move knight to d4 happens. And suddenly, it's very, very difficult for black to play. Because if you play what I did in the game, which is bishop to g6, and I missed this idea, there's this very, very interesting move, knight takes e6. Sorry, not knight takes e6. No, after bishop g6, what was the tactic? It is knight takes e6. Oh, yeah, obviously, yeah, knight takes e6, yeah, I calculated this properly. Yeah, knight takes e6, pawn takes, and bishop takes is a check. I lose the queen, I lose the game. So I should have thought a little bit harder here, and I should have played something like, the computer wants this move knight g4, which is very, very aggressive, g3, and like knight e5 with this reroute idea, and you have weakened light squares. I'm coming in here. Life is actually very, very good here. But I just thought, why am I giving up my light squared bishop? Why am I doing this? Why do I have to do this? I don't want to do this. I like my light squared bishop. I think it's a good bishop. So I played bishop g6, and knight e6 is on the board, and I'd be completely losing, and I'm completely losing, but my opponent doesn't find it. He plays knight b5 instead. Whew. Hooray. We don't lose immediately. I should go queen b8 now. I should go queen b8. The point is, I have to defend this pawn, and after queen b6, things get very, very ugly. I play queen b6, another very, very inaccurate move. I guess slightly inaccurate because of some ways for black to play to get out of it. But my idea of queen a6, queen b6 was just, that I want to play a6 at some point, and I want to like defend this e6 pawn because I thought there could be a problem in some lines, and you never know. Maybe I can like fight for the center somehow. Maybe I can get the queen back in the game. I don't like my queen on b8 as much because it doesn't fight for anything. Maybe I play a5 at some point. My opponent plays pawn to a4, which is very, very natural. And I convinced myself that the move pawn to a6 is a good move, where in fact it just blunders the game immediately, and I play it. And luckily for me, again, my opponent does not see the very, very easy way to play with it, which is the move pawn to a5. I'd probably have to like sack my queen or something crazy here, but the point is here, knight a7, it's a fork, and I lose the game, and there's no other squares for the king, for the queen. The queen is trapped besides the square. The square is also covered. Very, very funny. If you had seen that, I would probably just lose. There's not much to really talk about there. I'd probably just lose. But luckily for me, again, my opponent misses the right move and plays knight to d4. Okay, another foof. I saw that one too after I played pawn to a6. I saw that he could play this. I was terrified. I thought I was just going to lose, but luckily for me, MartinBot_GM isn't that good at chess. I play the move knight to e4. Okay, this is the idea. I'm just forking him. I mean, maybe the knight's better than the square. Maybe I go knight to d6. I don't really know. I'm just making an improvement move. I'm not sure where my knight is going or anything. I'm not sure of anything. Is the sky blue? I don't know. Maybe it is. But knight to e4 on the board. Rook ft1 makes a lot of sense. I don't really know what I was considering because rook ft1 seems very, very natural. Obviously, he plays this. And I think for a little bit, I play the move pawn to e5, which I think is a very, very good move. And the point is that I think, okay, I get control of the d file, my queen gets over to the king side, and I might be able to get some attacking play, moves like bishop h5 in the future after knight to f3. Okay, my opponent plays knight to f3, I play queen to f6 immediately, and I'm losing again, which is really annoying, really, really annoying. If I'm being honest, this position doesn't look that bad, but rook d8 here, queen b2, and it's GG's. Rook e8, and my opponent just comes over in the queen side, and I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm just done. So what am I supposed to play instead of queen f6? The very, very natural move of queen f6. I'm supposed to play something like rook d1. Actually, the only move is rook d1. Rook d1, and just chill. Just chill here for a second. Queen c7, defend the pawn, attack here. You come back. Well, you aren't threatening anything, so I can even... Well, okay, you're threatening bishop takes f7 check. No, you're not. Sorry, you are not threatening bishop takes f7 check because of, like, bishop takes, and I'm attacking the queen back. Okay, so that's something, but I mean, even king h8 here, for example. And you aren't threatening anything. This is my next move. Your bishop is hanging. I don't know. My position's not bad. But anyway, queen f6. I went with my original idea. Bishop to d5, and I bring the knight back to d6. I think it makes sense. Because I have to defend the b7 pawn, and I think the knight is kind of the one who has to do it. My knight is a little bit misplaced on e4, I thought. So, okay, bringing the knight back to d6 makes sense. I also just didn't want to bring my queen back to, like, defend, like, queen e7. I just didn't want to do this because I thought that I needed my queen on this kingside area. And if I did this, I'm being a little bit passive. But this is the best move again. Anyway, knight d6, rook to c5, and I play pawn to b6 after a long think. And the point is, if I don't play pawn to b6 now, my opponent's going to take control of the c file permanently, and I am simply going to lose. So pawn to b6 on the board, rook c6, rook takes c6, bishop takes c6, and I play this interesting idea, bishop to h5, which was the whole point of my plan originally. And the point is, I want to take the knight, I want to open up the structure. Of course, I have to play e4 first because the bishop can take. But this is kind of what I want to do. I just want to go for something like this. Maybe I get some play over on the king side. Maybe I'm able to play a move like h6, king h7, rook d6, and rook lift over onto the king side. But I don't really know. I mean, there's a lot of very interesting options here. And if I'm actually looking at this properly, I don't think that black has a decent position at all. I feel like white is going to be a little bit faster. If he plays a move like even pawn to h3, he's able to get it into the game very, very quickly. He's able to get everything going. And in reality, black is a lot worse. My opponent has a very, very nice idea. He plays rook to c1, getting out of this pin and saying that, okay, if I play move pawn to e4 now, he plays knight to d4, and he just kind of is there now. I have a weakness on e4. I'm just a lot worse. Okay, that's bad. That's not what we like to see. I decided, okay, I'm going to play rook to c8. I'm going to make sure that his bishop is pinned. Maybe I have some ideas. This is technically a threat now because you can't take back with the bishop as I'm attacking this. And my opponent sees that. He goes knight to d2, another very, very logical move. The knight comes back. It's maybe coming into the center like this. He's going to defend the rook somehow. Maybe queen b2, knight e4 is an idea. But I'm not sure. He really could have any idea here. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just worse. I'm just really, really a lot worse. So I decide now is the right time. I got to get my bishop back into the game. Bishop to g4. Bishop to g4. I think this move is necessary as well because my bishop is doing nothing on h5 now. My bishop has no targets over here. And if I put the bishop back on g6, it'll have no targets over here too. So with the bishop on g4, now it can come back to e6, come back to d7, it can go to f5 maybe. All these nice juicy squares open up for my bishop. So this is what I go for. Bishop to g4. Pawn to b5 is a nice move, trying to solidify the bishop. A takes b5, a takes b5. And I sit here and I decide to calculate this interesting idea, knight takes b5, which on the surface looks like it works because after bishop takes here and after queen takes, I would have this move bishop to d7. But there's a couple things to calculate here. One of them, which I was looking at for a while, is bishop takes d7 in that line. If we look at this, knight takes b5, queen takes b5, bishop d7, bishop takes d7, rook takes c1, and knight to f1. If we look at that position, technically, white has two pieces for the rook, and I'm not entirely sure about what the position is going to be like now. And I have some back rank problems. I'm going to play a move like queen d6. He's going to play a move, well, you can't play that, but maybe, I don't really know. There's many, many lines here, and it's very, very scary, but past me didn't really think so. So I take on b5. Queen takes b5, bishop d7, and I genuinely think bishop takes d7 is one of the top engine moves. I haven't analyzed this. It is. I'm very correct. Here, and we play this position, and after queen d6, only move, by the way. Queen d6, black is not better at all. It's just a draw. In fact, white is the one pushing for a win here, even though black technically has a passer with ideas like bishop h3 and g3, and just putting the bishop on this diagonal. Very, very interesting line. And black is playing only moves here. Black is playing only moves to survive. Now what I want to do, luckily my opponent doesn't take on d7. He plays the move knight to e4. Logical, but now this simply doesn't work because he doesn't have knight to c1 anymore, and bishop to d7 is not available for him. I play queen to g6 without a second thought. Seems reasonable. Maybe a bishop h3, maybe in the future. Don't know. Queen takes b6, bishop takes c6, f3. And technically in this position, it's completely equal, but it does in fact feel like white is technically pressuring because the pin is working against me now. This rook is actually very, very weak. It's hard to defend with my opponent's knight being able to jump in and take the defense away from it at any point. And I'm nervous. I'm really scared, actually. I'm very, very scared about this position. I don't think that I'm going to be able to win this game, but I'm still going to try, and I still do think that black has some chances, even though it is objectively balanced. I play the only move, pawn to h6. I have to get a break for my king. I have to make sure that my king gets to h7 at some point, so then my rook is not going to be taken with, like, checkmating ideas. And there's always some lines where having the back rank be like not that big of an issue is very, very important. My opponent plays rook c5. I play the move king to h7 now because I do not want this rook to be taken with check if I ever want to sacrifice the rook. My opponent goes knight to d2, realizing that maybe my idea is to take here, and then take on f3, and maybe that's an interesting plan. Like, for example, if like here, like this could be an idea. Oh, no, sorry. There's always queen g6. If this move, this could be an idea in some lines. Rook takes c8, bishop takes f3, like g3, and, well, in this line I would have queen b1. Nothing works. Queen at b3 kind of works in this case. bishop e4, rook c8 takes g3. And I mean, this is an interesting plan. Black has a pawn for the exchange. It's complicated, but maybe I can hold this as black. Maybe I can try to win this even. So my opponent decides instead to just move the knight back to d2. I play queen to d3, going after his knight, going after his pawn. He's forced to go knight to f1. If he goes knight up into the center like this, it just seems like bad news bears. He has moves like, I have moved like bishop f3 here. Very, very nice move. If you take my bishop, there's crazy ideas here, like just simply rook d8, and my opponent is just going to be very, very simply perpetualized to death in this position. So my opponent goes knight f1, make sure there's no tactics here. Bishop f3 definitely doesn't work now because, well, he can just take bishop e2. It doesn't matter. Anyway, knight to f1. I played bishop to b7 after some thought, saying that, okay, well, you can't take this because of the rook hanging, and if you take with the rook, I'm going to take back with the bishop, and I have ideas of playing bishop to a6 at some point, going after the knight. What I was really, really hoping for is my opponent was not going to take my rook, was just going to like sit here and do something, but then bishop a6, and actually black wins. I was really hoping for this. My opponent doesn't do that though. My opponent is not that bad at chess. He plays rook c8, and my opponent goes queen to c7, and I simply play the move bishop to a6, queen to c1 back, defending the knight. And somehow in this position, there's nothing for black. It feels like black is on the right way. It feels like black is going to like just slowly win this position. But I realize that there's just nothing to be done. There's nothing to be done, and I'm down 2 minutes on the clock. So okay, I'm just going to trade all the pieces and offer a draw. And my opponent doesn't take a draw. King g5. Okay, we have to play this out. f5. I play f4 check. He has to take, king h3, and I play the move g6. I get my king to h4. It's just a draw in this position. h3, I play the move h5. Maybe there's something. I don't really know. My opponent plays king to h2. I play the move h takes g4, h takes g4, and pawn to g5, and I stalemate myself. You may have noticed something in this position. Yeah, so black is completely winning here if I just find the move king to g5, and it's over. My opponent is kicked out. He loses the pawn, he loses everything. Mate on the board. It's not even that hard to calculate, really. It's actually very, very simple. It's very, very simple. But I didn't play that. I just stalemated myself. Yeah, and this was a fun game. This is one of those games that really make me want to play more chess, because it's just an amazing game, and everyone should play it because it's great. Yeah, so anyway, recap. I missed this tactic, king to h2, king to g5 just wins on the spot. I miss something here. I miss that I'm just getting forked here after move a5. I miss that after this he has knight to e6. I miss everything, and I miss winning games. That's what I really miss. I miss doing that. Anyway, this was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys found this entertaining. Structure of all of the above. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, do all the normal things YouTubers tell you to. And yeah, that's it. Good evening and good night.